The boat can leave now. Tell the crew. Cue the voodoo drums. Enough. Why are we here? Why has Kilt-Man dragged you here again? Well, because we have to finish off the Fulci-Fest, the slaughter-fest that began with City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, and House by the Cemetery. But now we're going to go back to my favourite and the film that really put little diminutive Lucio Fulci, the Italian splatter fiend, the Benny Hill of bloodfests, on the map of genre fans the world over, who we now love and adore, this little tyrant from behind the camera. And this is Zombie Flesh Eaters. 1979 it came out. It was known in Italy as Zombie 2 because, why? George A. Romero had released Night of the Living Dead in 1968, which brought flesh-eating zombies into the world idiom, and into culture. But this only became really successful when he brought out his first of many sequels to that movie in 1978, almost a decade later, with Dawn of the Dead, which in Italy was known as Zombie. And because Dawn of the Dead was such a commercial and critical hit and a genuine, genre masterpiece in the making, everyone knew this was an absolute class act right from the word go. That Italy had to stand up and pay attention and go, hang on a minute, surely we can go one better than this, or at least cash in on the bloody bandwagon. Now how are we going to do this? Who can we call upon? Right, go down into the dungeon and they've got all these caskets and they're all, these things are sealed. This one, it says open only in the event of much needed ultra violence and eyeball mayhem. This one will do. Who's in there as the steam arises? Little Lucio Fulci. Yes. This guy could be the one to put Italy on the splatter map of the world. And they weren't wrong, were they? Let's be honest. Now, Fulci, I've discussed his career beforehand. He was renowned for comedies, for thrillers, for dramas, for crime movies, for sex comedies. This guy had done a real gamut of stuff. And he dabbled in giallo movies too, stalker / thriller movies. And he certainly found his feet when it came to gut-munching zombie epics. And we've discussed what followed from Zombie Flesh Eaters, which is the title which we know and love this movie as, Zombie Flesh Eaters. It says, it does what it says on the tin, zombies and flesh eating. Pretty much, there you go. He then, after this movie, would go into the more gothic style, although his films would always have zombies in them. City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, House by the Cemetery would have things from beyond the grave coming back and, exacting hellish, chaos upon the living. But weird thing is, only Zombie Flesh Eaters was the one, 1979 was the one that actually sort of carried on the tradition of the Romero flesh-eating zombies, where if you were bitten but didn't get devoured, you would die and then you would come back as a zombie. If you died and not be eaten, you would come back as a zombie as well. So, and The Walking Dead, the now, kind of disastrous, we're all leaving The Walking Dead, like a plague. And that carries on the whole thing, of course. And we all know what zombies are. But it was largely in part to Fulci's seminal masterpiece following the year after Dawn of the Dead. And his film cleverly posited itself as sort of a sideways slant on Romero's awesome trilogy, because it kind of sets up how the zombies got to New York and got to America in the first place. and it gives a few little tantalising clues as to what may lie behind their arrival from the grave. And, oh, by the way, this is tea. It is, honestly. This cup is not full of whiskey at all. Honestly, it's not. So, the film opens with a terrific Nosferatu-style, introduction. A deserted schooner just drifts into Hudson Bay, Manhattan. Harbour Patrol board this thing. It's deserted. They find worms and horrible stuff on board. Fabio Frizzi's awesome score does some weird synth snarls and guttural growls and weirdness. And as the first copper aboard will discover, it actually isn't deserted, because a door gets broken down and the biggest motherfucking zombie ever plows through, grabs this poor guy and rips his throat out with one easy quick chomp. Blood. Audiences at that point were like, oh shit, that's kind of gone beyond what we thought this would do. So he then goes on top of the top deck. The cop's partner, freeze, let's get this. Brown, 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 brown. And this big hulking brute falls overboard and goes into the Hudson. And we'll then see him in a great little sequence in the morgue, where the head pathologist is going like, so, what do you think is the cause of death? And this guy goes, well, judging by my report already, massive laceration of the jugular. And he goes like, It looks to me like cause of death was caused by one or more bites. Ripped up jugular, and this other guy's going like, don't see it. What? And then behind their backs, the shroud over the rest of his body begins to move as a hand begins to come to life. So we now know that the plague is going to take hit in New York. Into this mix, mysterious boat, cop gets killed, what's going on there? Strange assailant, a New York tabloid, which is run by, in his customary cameo, little Lucio Fulci. Sitting behind the editorial desk, summons in his adventurous investigative journalist, Peter West, who's an Anglophile, a Brit, who, hey, don't take advantage of the fact your uncle bought the paper, says Fulci in a very badly dubbed over voice. And Peter West is played by Ian McCulloch, who was a perennial sort of British soap opera star in a long-running but ill-fated sort of Scottish Highland soap opera called Take the High Road. Take the High Road, and he leapt into Italian splatter, because he did a few movies after this as well. And he teams up with Tisa Farrow, who plays Anne Bowles, who is the daughter of I think it's the daughter of the guy whose schooner, this mysterious schooner that arrived in Hudson Bay, who's gone missing. She's the daughter of this guy. So the police are interested. Well, Miss Bowles, where is your father? What's happened to him? And she's like, I don't know. I've got no idea. I've just arrived here. Where is he? What's going on? And she will then team up with Peter West, because this little schooner is chartered out of an island called Matul in the Antilles. So they will fly out there, and then they will charter a boat led by that's his name, Brian and Susan. Brian played by Al Cliver, not his real name, that's his Americanized name. He's an Italian genre stalwart. He's in a few Fulci movies. His real name I can't remember or pronounce. And we'll take you to Matul for but you got to cover our costs. And his wife Susan, played by the unbelievably gorgeous Oretta Gay. Take a second now to remember Oretta Gay. Yeah. And they will venture out there to go to the island of Matul to find what's happened to her father and what's going on, where this boat came from, and why this island, which is presided over by Richard Johnson. Richard Johnson, great classical actor, and also the star of the amazing 1960s horror movie, supernatural horror movie, The Haunting, the original The Haunting, directed by Robert Wise. A marvellous, marvellous movie. And he gives some great clout to this film as well. It gets you when people go like, oh, the Italian movies, oh, the zombie films. Well, we're going back to the one that started it all, really. And it's, apart from, I would say, Tisa Farrow, who's not very good at all. By the way, her sister, Mia Farrow, maybe should have warned her, don't go acting in horror movies because she won't have a pleasant time. Mia Farrow, of course, was Rosemary, the poor girl that gave birth to the Devil's Son in Roman Polanski's terrific supernatural shocker, Rosemary's Baby. And she's a good actress too. Tisa Farrow, her sister, is not such a good actress. And she then would appear in a few other Italian, really nasty movies. And, but she's not great. But she's there, and just serves a purpose to get us to the island, a reason for us to go there. But, Richard Johnson, my God, he is fantastic in this. He plays this doctor who is in this ramshackle shanty town. An old church has become his hospital. Why he's there, we never know. Anne Bowles, her father that went missing, he was an associate, a colleague of this doctor, Dr. Maynard. Now, Maynard has discovered that the dead seem to be, alive and kicking, coming up from their graves and walking around the town at night. It's all a bit kind of weird, and, we've not seen any real, carnage so far, apart from the poor copper in the harbour. But on the island, it doesn't seem to be quite that bad. People are still, checking in, sick, fever, but they kind of know, they've already realised that once this mysterious malady takes hold of them, then they go all sweaty, their eyes go all greasy, they begin to hallucinate and babble mumbo jumbo, a bit like yours truly. The kind of writings on the wall, and then what they tend to do, these poor people die, they'll wrap them up in a shroud, tie them up, and then once these things go and rise up again with their shroud on, Dr. Maynard will get his gun out and just whoosh, blow their brains out, and then their bodies are just carted off and buried in a shallow grave. He hasn't really worked out what's going on. There's rumours of a voodoo high priest that's got some kind of curse on the town, but it's just hearsay. Nothing really comes of that. But in a wonderful moment, he does describe to our four protagonists who arrive on the island, he does say, look, it's true, the dead are rising from the grave. I've tried everything we've done. I've tried bacteriology. I've tried virology. I've looked at radiology. And we've done tests for epilepsy, catalepsy. And, nothing fits, nothing works. So at least in Fulci's movie, they are trying to address why these things are coming back from the grave. Yeah, there's no answer, but he does discuss it at the very least, and which is nice, a nice little addition to the whole zombie genre mythos. They're looking into it. They've got no answers, but hey, And Fulci's zombies are, oh my God, they are leaps and bounds better than Romero's. Now, you could argue that in Romero's film, they look like they've had an undercoat of green or blue emulsion. But I think the idea in Romero's film is that they are kind of freshly dead. A lot of the zombies you see in Fulci's movies are genuinely rotting. They are from the air, they're maggot-ridden, they've got eyeballs missing and worms writhing round in the sockets. These things look incredible. They are really horrific looking cadavers. You genuinely believe there's a great shot of these things shuffling down the street and the camera sort of pans around one And they do a great zombie walk as well. Better than Romero's infamous zombie shuffle. Because they look like they're on petrified, limbs that don't really work, muscles that are desiccated and eroded. They look like they're struggling, and the camera pans in on this one, and it's got like a mashed up face on one side, but when it goes around the other side, half the face is even fucking gone. There's an ear missing, and it zooms in on this ruined, cranium, but this thing's still moving. It's just makeup provided by, yes, those who've watched all the other videos on this Lucio Fulci-Fest will know I have this fucking thing about the makeup guy, Gianetto De Rosso. And it is genuinely the guy that I like. There's two guys called Gino De Rossi. Two of them. One's Gianetto and one's Gino. And they actually worked together on the House by the Cemetery, but they did hopscotch over certain movies. One guy's effects weren't as good as the other guy's. In this film, it's Gianetto De Rossi. It's the guy that does the best fucking gory makeup ever. So you're going to have throats ripped out with stringy latex pinging out, huge gouts of flesh hanging down, and welters of gore going glug, 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 as the poor actress in question will lean into the camera, nice of her, to show us in gory close-up what's going on there, and then she'll slowly shuffle and fall out of shot, and it's horrendous. His effects are unbelievably good. You've also got such incredible set pieces. You have, and it makes no sense at all, but it is delicious cinema, and it's now become really, really infamous. What's her name? Oh, Oretta Gay, which is Susan, the adventurous couple on the boat that the Americans, Peter West and Anne Bowles charter to go to the Antilles. They stop off. Hey, Brian, I want to get some shots. The water's crystal clear. So Oretta Gay strips off to a little stringy, tiny, and I mean tiny bikini bottom and no top. And my God, a gazillion wet dreams were birthed in that sequence alone. And that was just me. And then she goes underwater and starts filming it. And it's a terrifically photographed sequence. But she's not alone down there. Oh, God, no. Because what some people say is a tiger shark, well, in actual fact, it's a grey nurse shark, will come swimming up to her. Now, if you look at this sequence, and it's a bit unfortunate, and I don't like what they did here, because that shark has quite clearly had its teeth either removed or filed down. It's got some, but they have close-ups of going, and there's no fucking teeth there. But it doesn't detract from the effect of the sequence. It swims over her, and in fantastic photography and choreography underwater, she will swim away from this, glide away, and try and seek refuge in some rocks and some reef. And behind her, this hand, because you've heard me talk about this before, in the zombie movies, there's always hands coming out of different areas of the frame. Here's one here, one prepared area. This hand will come round, and it's a zombie. It's a fucking zombie underwater. Oh my God. And it's a really nasty looking zombie too. Kind of a brutal looking fella. He looks brick hard, and he goes for it. And she manages to fight him off, gets some kind of underwater shrubbery, rubs it in his face, and then the shark will go for him as she escapes and gets back on the boat. And he takes a chunk out the shark. The shark takes his arm and rips that off. It's a tremendously surreal sequence. Fucking zombie fighting a shark underwater. Good God, there's nothing else in cinema that equals it, really. No one else has tried because you just couldn't. And it's daft. How did he get there? Hey, what does it matter? But the thing about Fulci zombies is that they're not just mindless, berserkers just trying to chow down. Because you have the infamous sequence of poor Dr. Maynard's wife, played by, if you thought Oretta Gay was gorgeous, Olga Carlothos, who plays Dr. Maynard's wife, who is suspicious of Maynard's experiments and all this, and doesn't like what's happening. Get me off this fucking island, you know. And he tries. He radios, you know, Guadeloupe 1, you know. This is Dr. Maynard. Get us off. I gave him an accent. He hasn't got a fucking accent, but hey, you know, and it gets nowhere anyway. And of course, this poor wife takes a lovely nudie shower, a bit more TNA for you. But a zombie is prowling around outside. And this is the thing about Fulci's zombies in this movie. They are, in a lot of cases, just mindless, lumbering things that shuffle down and headbutt doors open. And greatly, a lot of them have their eyes shut too, but still seem to home in on prey. No other zombie films seem to do that. You know, these things have got their eyes shut and they're raspy breath. They're dead. Their lungs shouldn't be working, so why are they fucking breathing? But anyway, you know, and they'll home in on a target and go for them. And but in this sequence with poor Dr. Maynard's wife, Mrs. Maynard, has to shower, and there's a zombie which is clearly prowling around and after her, and she'll hear noises in the house, and then she realizes something's obviously up. And then she'll go and barricade herself in the bedroom and put a chest of drawers against the door. But this zombie will like smash through the door and grab her. You know where I'm going with this. You all know where I'm going with this. Grab her hair and will drag her slowly, inexorably towards the most wicked wooden splinter of this shattered door that you've ever seen. Splinter that fucking big. And she's dragged on like that. As this thing, and it goes on, and you see it from different angles. And then just at that moment when it hits her eyeball, and you hear that horrible popping, and it goes through, you think, they're going to cut away here. Fulci, cut away from gore. This thing goes through, and you hear it going in, and it's obviously hits her brain, and then she snaps the splinter, and it goes, and then she gets dragged through even further. And in the meantime, you are like barfing in the aisles, and you're like, oh my god, no, because it is the most horrendous death you've ever seen. It really, really is. But then again, you know, it is kind of stupid too. This zombie is clearly like, I'm going to drag your face and your eyeball onto this splinter, because he's purposely doing this, you know, for the set piece. What's stopping her from going, well, okay, you're dragging me, big splinter, I'll just reach up with my free hand. I've got two free hands, as it happens. I could just snap that off and stick it in your wrist and cut your hand off or whatever and get away. But no, she'll just like, I'm going through that, and doesn't put up much of a fight, really. Our friends, you know, our adventurous foursome will then find her body. They'll go, after meeting the doctor, you go and check on my wife. So they're going to go in and you'll see the infamous zombie, you know, cookout, where she's lying, not much left of her, bit of a torso, ripped up body, and they're all eating. There's all four of them sitting around, ripping bits of raw liver, kidneys out, hunks of flesh here, there, and everywhere. So then, now you know, these motherfuckers actually eat you when they've got you. Hence the American poster, which had the fantastic conquistador, were-eyed zombie, who takes the huge chunk out of Loretta Gay's neck with the gouts of blood shortly after this sequence of finding Mrs. Maynard's body. And their poster tagline was, "We are going to eat you." Roxy, the wonder dog, has arrived. You know, which was, they weren't taking no prisoners, because that's what the film does. We are going to eat you. If we get hold of you, your dinner. Simple as that. There's no satire. There's no social comment in Fulci's movie, whereas Romero was poking a big finger, you know, in the eye of, you know, mindless, you know, consumerism and following the crowd, following the flock, having no individual interest or taste, just going with the flow. Fulci doesn't have that. Fulci goes for sensationalism, and quite rightly so. His film is photographed amazingly. You know, there's so many great shots of the zombies. After the infamous conquistador attack on poor Susan, they've been driving the Land Rover, they've hit a zombie which comes out of nowhere and fucking wrenched this body into oblivion. And then they go and sit off and rest because poor Peter West, Ian McCulloch, has done his ankle in. And in a very impromptu sort of, and kind of, ill-advised love scene, him and Anne Bowles sit together and, they're about to have a bit of a canoodle. And then with Fabio Frizzi's fantastic synthesized score, which is all voodoo drums and then synth embellishments, this hand just comes up and grabs hair by the scalp and pulls her back, as another hand grabs his injured foot and then starts ripping his wound apart. Brian goes to save them, and in the meantime a conquistador, because Brian's always said, the conquistadors came here, this is their graveyard, and this maggoty, worm-ridden zombie, that's my dog, she's chowing down on something over there, gets up from this grave, and poor Susan's transfixed with horror, and he puts the bite on her. Holy Jesus Christ. It is just grotesque, but fabulous. Ian McCulloch as Peter will, even with his bad foot, will come up and save the day with an impromptu, wrenched out a wooden crucifix, a wooden cross from a grave, clubbed it in the gob, and then sliced its head off with a real brain splat, horrific thing. Of course, a conquistador buried there is going to be nothing more than bones. There'll be no flesh on it, and certainly no blood inside it, but what does it matter? It's just gruesome for a gruesome sake. By the way, can you see in the background there, the poster, the famous Zombie Fletcher's poster, where you've got this surreal artwork of the zombies converging on New York and the hand coming out the grave. Just fantastic stuff. It all culminates, obviously, in the final shootout in the hospital, the ramshackle hospital. Molotov cocktails are made, and okay, there's a bit of cheapskate stuff going on here, because you'll see the same shot of Brian and Peter lobbing these Molotov cocktails. If you see it once, you see it 5 times, from different angles. Doesn't matter. The deadheads break through the barricades in a great sequence when they get back there. And I love this sequence as well, because no one say that Ian McCulloch can't act. I interviewed the guy about the restoration of this movie several years ago for AV Forums. I interviewed him over the phone and had a fabulous time. It's all recorded. It's all on AV Forums. Come on, find it. And he was a wonderful fellow with some great anecdotes about Lucio Fulci and his tenure in the zombie genre. And dog, stop it! Fucking animals, gonna ruin everything, steal the show. They finally get in after escaping. Susan's had her throat ripped out. And they get on the door and they get in there and they barricade the door. And Ian McCulloch, as Peter says, they're out there, they're everywhere, they're coming back from the grave, they're alive, they're everywhere. And I just love the desperation and sheer shock on his face as he says it. It's tremendous. Then you get a sequence of poor Brian, who's lost his wife, for God's sake, barricading the door, putting loads of things there. And he says to the doctor, "You think that'll hold him?" The doctor goes, "Not a chance." Should have gone, "What the fuck did you tell me? Because I've just spent half an hour piling all this shit up and it's going to do no good." And it does do no good. They've got all these these windows, these wooden windows, which are, you bring them down and tie them down, and zombies keep popping up through these things, and they've got to smack them in the mush with rifle butts and blow their heads apart. Tremendous. And the poor Maynard will get his cheek ripped out, and all the other supporting cast, including Lucas, who's his native helper, assistant, played by a guy called Dakar, who apparently is a very good actor, and he's good in this. But they have a little debate as to what's causing all this, and he said, "I Dr. Maynard's going like, I don't believe in voodoo. It's wrong. It's just superstition. And I don't know what makes the dead come back from the dead, but it certainly isn't voodoo. And Lucas goes like, well, Lucas don't believe that the dead be dead. It's just great little anecdotes and stuff like. And everyone, it just turns to bedlam. But our three remaining protagonists will then manage to shoot and blast their way out with a pistol, a shotgun, Molotov cocktails, heads are blown apart. They set the whole place on fire, it all cascades down to the ground. Roxy, leave that tray alone. Our heroes will then get out to the boat again. But in the meantime, Susan's come back from the grave and put the bite on Brian. Then they shoot Susan. They get back on the boat. Brian is now dying and going to turn into a zombie. And like, let's turn the radio on and find out. Let's get some good news for a change. And then you get the infamous conclusion. You know? And they hear like, I don't know, it's Radio New York. And this poor broadcaster's going like, the zombies have taken over New York. I've just been informed they've entered the building. They're at the door. They're coming in. You know, Pulitzer Prize broadcasting there. You know, suffering for his art. And it's a tremendous, it's so laughable, but it's actually really good as well. You know, as if like, they're at the door, they're coming in. Oh, fucking turn off recording and run. That's all you gotta do, mate. That's all you gotta do. But it brings out this sort of nihilistic, apocalyptic conclusion to the movie. You know, these guys, well, albeit two of them now, have survived the island of Matul. And they've got a zombie coming back to life on board already. They're hoping to get back to civilization. But civilization ain't worth going back to. And Fulci's infamous closing shot is the zombies heading down the Brooklyn Bridge towards, you know, New York. Of course, what goes wrong there is that he guerrilla filmed it. He didn't have permission to film it. He just filmed it anyway. And you got rush hour traffic going to and fro, and people honking their horns, you know, business as usual, and the zombies are all streaming towards New York City. It's a fabulous conclusion. All aided and abetted by Fulci's go for broke, rip your throat out ferocity in filmmaking, plus Fabio Frizzi's enormously hypnotic and fabulous, mesmerising score. Folks, I could say a lot more. I love this movie. Zombie Flesh Eaters is, you know, Romero's Dawn of the Dead is the Bible of zombie movies, but this is the Antichrist. This is grisly, down and dirty, and it really, really hits the spot. If you're a gorehound, you love this. Well, if you're a gorehound, you already know the film.